Hello, my name is Elizabeth and I am the chairperson of the Pro Committee, and I am here with other members of the proactive community.
Hello, my name is Matt and I'm a editor of the proactive Facebook page.
Hello, I'm Michael McLaughlin and I am Secretary of the Proactive Community.
Hi, my name is Matt Swinburne and I'm on the Proactive Committee main of it.
Hi, I'm Natalie and I am interested in the environment.
Today, to mark the World Earth Day, we have Louise from the Surrey Wildlife Trust to talk to us about the climate change and how we can make a difference.
Hello, thanks for having me.
The proactive community is passionate about how we can improve the environment. We held meetings about what we can do and came up with 10 pledges. It's to use bags for life, not plastic bags.
Hang wet clothes up to dry and use the tumble dryer less.
Try and use less water in the kettle.
Yeah, recycle where possible.
And how to make pollution better.
When it comes to an individual action for common good, one of the best ways that people can make an impact of our planet is by cleaning up their public spaces. Our pollution problem is getting out of hand and our environment is suffering for it. Open landfills emit dangerous greenhouse gases, waste and pollution that enters our oceans and fresh water. Microplastics even make it into our food and the air we breathe. It's estimated that humans consume a credit card's worth of plastic every week. Louise, how can we stop this?
Well, Matt, I think from the pledges you've just been reading out, those individual actions, if we all started to do that, we would start to make a real difference. We've got to change our lifestyles and start to use less and reduce the amount of waste we generate, because every single thing we do emits either gases that pollute our environment, liquids that produce our waterways and our oceans, or solids that break down and then pollute our environment. So if we start to use less, whether it be energy or less resources, then we all start to make a difference.
Louise, could you tell us about the projects you won?
Yes, sure, Matt. So at Surrey Wildlife Trust, we're really keen to take this idea of individual action and community action forward, because we believe that by taking action for nature, you can actually help with issues such as climate change. Because if you think about a tree, it needs carbon dioxide to grow, and carbon dioxide is one of the problem gases with climate change. So if we plant more plants and grow more plants, then we will start to absorb more carbon dioxide. If we have more plants as well, we have much healthier ecosystems where we have thriving wildlife communities. And if you plant a hedgerow, then you trap air pollution that's emitted from cars and other vehicles. So we really favour hedgerows because they provide corridors for animals to travel along. And if you think about a changing climate, it's getting hotter and drier in the south where we are and warmer in the north. And some of our species are trying to move through the country. And if we provide corridors for them to travel through, then they can, that will lessen the impact of a changing climate on these species. So our projects are all about taking action for nature and linking up wild spaces. So that could be through road verges, which provide fantastic corridors for wildlife to move along, or through our rivers, or through our gardens. If you think of a whole street of gardens, that provides a fantastic habitat, and it can link up an area of woodland at the bottom of the street with a field at the other end of the street by having a lovely network of gardens that are great for wildlife. So we're really into taking action for insects at the moment. Even though they're tiny little creatures, they're at the bottom of the food chain of so many other animals. If you think about our hedgehogs, they love to eat worms and beetles, and badgers love to eat worms. And if we've got healthy soils and healthy invertebrate communities, then we support the birds and the animals further up the food chain. And we're all part of this natural ecosystem. And if the ecosystems are healthy, then we're going to be healthy too.
Thank you very much, Louise, for answering that question.
Pleasure.
Have you noticed any changes in wildlife since lockdown?
So Michael, during lockdown, we have noticed some changes in wildlife. I don't know if you can remember back to the first lockdown when there were hardly any cars on the road. We all really noticed how noisy the birds were. We could all hear the bird song, and we started to notice nature a lot more. And without all that traffic on the roads, animals were crossing barriers. So animals were moving further afield. And in fact, in my road, we had badgers for the first time ever because they'd come from a nearby nature reserve and got across the busy road that didn't have any traffic on during lockdown and got into our gardens. So the first lockdown had a positive impact on wildlife, and it had probably a positive impact on all of us because we started to connect with nature a lot more. But in the last few months, our green spaces have been the only places where we could meet up and socialise. And I think our wild spaces have really started to suffer from the increased footfall on our nature reserves and green spaces. So there's been a lot of trampling, there's been a lot of litter left behind, there's been a lot of disturbance to nesting sites, especially for ground nesting birds. And another problem we've started to realise is that a lot of our dogs have flea treatments which contain chemicals which get into our rivers and into our waterways, which actually kill insects. The one flea treatment on a dog can kill up to 60 million bees. So it's having a massive impact on our ecosystem. So although we've connected with nature a bit more, we've also during lockdown had an impact on our wildlife. So it's probably time to give back to nature.
How can we encourage insects to our gardens?
Well, we can all do something to encourage insects into our gardens. What we need to do is start to grow plants that aren't always the prettiest, most frilliest flowers, but they do have ones that have lots of nectar and pollen in. They can still be very beautiful, they can still smell beautiful as well, but they attract our native insects. So things like foxgloves and lavenders and chives are absolutely fantastic for insects. Just perfect for the shape of their mouth parts so that they can get to the nectar. So if we grow more flowers and if we stop cutting our lawns at key times of year, there's a program called No Mow May. So if you leave your garden uncut for a month, then the wildflowers will naturally come back. You don't even have to go to the garden centre and buy seeds or plants. Things will grow up. And that's fantastic habitat then for the pollinating insects that visit our garden. Or you can just put a pile of logs in the garden and that provides a lovely shelter for lots of invertebrates to go and live amongst the logs. It's nice and dark and damp and there's rotting wood for them to feed on. That's a simple solution to get more insects into your garden. Or a compost heap. Rather than chucking stuff out into the bins, form a compost heap with all your garden waste and the worms will come and the centipedes and the millipedes and the wood lice, and that's food for hedgehogs and toads and slow worms, and you just create fantastic habitat resources in your own garden.
Brilliant, thank you. So over to Matt.
Right. Louise, for people who don't have access to outside space for wildlife, what would you do about that?
Okay, so there are all sorts of things that people can do even if they don't have a garden. For example, you can have a window mounted bird feeder, which you can fill up with bird food and attract birds to your garden. If you've got a small balcony, you can pack that full of flowering plants as well. You don't need to have a big garden. If you don't have any of that, you could start to get a community group together and campaign to stop the council from cutting your roadside verges so that they're left to grow long and wildflowers to grow and establish in the road verges. Or same with your local park, you could write to the council and ask them not to cut all of the grass short there and to maybe plant hedgerows there so you can encourage nature into your local spaces. Or you could volunteer with an organisation such as us, the Surrey Wildlife Trust, and come along and help us in our nature reserves. Or what else could you do? You could also start a campaign. There's always petitions going to government, asking them to ban the use of pesticides, to stop the use of peat going into our compost so that we leave our peatlands intact, which trap lots of carbon, which is great to stop climate change. If you sign up to these petitions and campaigns, then even without leaving your armchair, you can make a difference by letting government know that you care about our wildlife and the future of our planet.
Okay, thank you for that, Louise. That's very interesting information. So thank you very much for that.
So Louise, my question would be about rubbish. How to recycle it a bit more or a lot more?
Yeah, so lots of the curbside rubbish collection schemes now have recycling. So it's all about looking at what you're throwing away in your bin and sorting it before you put it into your bin to make sure it gets recycled. Some councils collect more than others. So there are websites you can go to or apps you can download for all the bits of soft plastic that might not get collected from your recycling bin. You can send them off to companies who will recycle them. So there are schemes such as that. But the main thing, I think, is for us to stop buying so much new stuff. You can go to charity shops and pick up amazing things there, can't you? From ornaments to new clothes to bags to shoes. And I think we need to reuse things a lot more and stop using all these single-use plastics. There are some fantastic water bottles out there now, so you don't need to buy plastic bottles of water every time you go out. You can take your coffee cup with you and get that filled at the coffee shop. And I think we can really start to change small things in our lives and stop generating so much rubbish. And also visit shops like there are eco shops where you don't need to take home so much plastic packaging. You can take containers with you and fill it up with all the flour and the sugar and the grains that you will need.
As Active Prospects, we do our bit because we have the Rework It boutique where they recycle, where people can bring their stuff in and then they can, is it a recycle things, and where they can come and come and donate their stuff. Then they can reuse it, and the shop sells it, and it goes on to a better to a person that needs it. So we do our bit at the boutique as well.
That's fantastic, really good. And also you're doing a great thing, you've got an allotment, haven't you? And you can even grow your own, which has no packaging. So it's fantastic. And you don't have to use any chemicals or pesticides to grow your own vegetables.
Thank you.
How can we stop farmers putting pesticide on like vegetables, fruit and stuff like that? Because pesticide is not very good for you.
Yeah, I think we have to campaign to government for bigger things like that, or we can make choices. We can choose organic vegetables, or we can look for the Soil Association logo on food that we buy, because that won't have pesticides in the food, but often it can be more expensive. So I think generally you just have to make your views known to government that you don't want pesticides in your food, because farmers will use them to ensure their crop is successful, otherwise they lose money. But if they get subsidies from government to care for nature rather than produce so much food that we even have too much food and it's all wasted, then I think farmers will change their practices. So it's all got to come from campaigning government and letting government know that you care.
Okay, thank you for that, Louise.
Thank you so much, Louise, for coming today and talking to us. We would like very much to visit the centre. Can you tell us when it will be reopening and how can people listening get involved in the work you do?
That's great. We'd love to have more visitors to our nature reserves. We manage over 80 across Surrey, so no matter where you are in Surrey, there's one nearby. So do have a look at our website, which is www.surreywildlifetrust.org. It's got all of our nature reserves on there. We have 2 education centres. I'm sitting in one in Leatherhead, which is fully accessible, and you just need to go to our website to see how to book to come and visit. But all of our other nature reserves are free to visit at any point. And if you want to get involved through volunteering, you can sign up to be a volunteer. If you want to take action for nature, we've got pages on our website showing you all the different things that you can do, from making a bird feeder, making a small pond, to campaigning at the much higher level to tell government what you really want their actions to be to help nature. So visit the website and have a look, and then come and visit us.
So what time do you open the centres and close the centres?
Well, the 2 education centres that we have are open depending on when we get bookings. So we're open now for bookings because lockdown is easing and ending. So we've got schools visiting and we've got volunteers working on our reserves. That's all started up again this week. And usually we're open from 8:30 till 4:30. But all of the other nature reserves are open all of the time. So you can go for a walk at any of those places whenever you feel like it.
Oh, thank you so much, Louise. That was really good. I've learned an awful lot.